Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me at benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcast because People of Distinction is a nationally and internationally syndicated show because of listeners like you. Our shows are available across all major podcast distributors as well as YouTube. And if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. We appreciate the support. Continue to like and follow and sit back and strap in because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Raul A. Deju. And we're going to be discussing his amazing book, Yes, I Can, and So Can You. Available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a whole host of other places. People, do me a favor and just type this man's name into a Google search bar and you're going to be greeted with a lot, okay? Because when I tell you Raul has done some things, trust me when I tell you that, because Raul has done some things. And there is only a fraction that we're going to be able to cover during today's interview. But by the time we've concluded, you're going to want to do your own research. You're going to want to pick up copies of this amazing book. And you're going to want to see what I'm talking about. Now, before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity and quickly point out the fact that Raul was brought to our network by one of the best publishing firms in the business. People you already know, I'm talking about Author Reputation Press. So if you're a writer out there who has gone through their process and now you need help moving the book you just developed, well, look no further than ARP because this is exactly what they specialize in. And you're going to want to head on over to authorreputationpress.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, as I mentioned, it is an absolute pleasure, a true honor to have Raul here on the line. People, although he has accomplished so much, we're going to keep it honed into his book, Yes, I Can, and So Can You. Now, his book is a memoir, so it's going to cover a lot of aspects that he has done in his life. But bear in mind, the purposes of this is not just to put his impressive resume out there. Yeah, it's going to do that. But it's also to motivate. It's also to inspire you that, like the title says, he was able to migrate to this country and truly fulfill that American dream. And so can you. And it's going to take some hard work. It's going to take some impressive connections along the way. But it is absolutely within your grasp. And I love that message. And that is something that I can absolutely get behind. Without further ado, listen, man, it's his life. He's lived it. So let's bring him here with us. Raul, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction. And thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Always doing great.
Wonderful. Raul, you strike me as a glass half full type of person. And I like that mentality, man. I like that. You know, this is something special that you've created. And as I mentioned to you in the pre-screening call, your resume, your background is quite impressive. Let's start there. This is a memoir, so I'm sure there's going to be some overlap, not a problem whatsoever. But first and foremost, who is Raul A. Deju?
Well, I am me, and I started my life in Cuba. And I spent my youth in Cuba until somebody called Fidel Castro came in. And, it was time to head out and try to go to a country that's free like the United States. But I came here when I was 14 and change, and I came in alone. So I didn't have parents or anybody to really take care of me, but friends of the family and others like that. And since that age, I have been building things and creating companies and enterprises in America.
You know, Raul, thank you very much for that. I want to ask, because listen, you migrating to this country by no means is a new thing, right? I mean, this country, although not to get political here, I feel like we don't hear the phrase as much anymore, but I remember growing up and America was always viewed as a melting pot, right? It was a place with all of these different people from different backgrounds, and it was celebrated. Doesn't seem like it's celebrated so much anymore, but that's for another discussion. My question to you, I'm curious, as you were migrating here, can you describe the most challenging or maybe even pivotal moment during your journey?
Well, during my journey, I basically was leaving my parents in Cuba. Mm-hmm. And my family owned a radio and TV network, and they also own a photography studio. Those days were very primitive in terms of photography compared to today. But basically, I came here alone and with 55 pounds of photographs and 1 pound of change clothes, because we wanted to have the family history come with me. And you didn't have computers or anything like that in those days. Mm-hmm. So I physically brought in the photos. And it's been great since. I went to finished high school in Miami, and then I did very well in physics. In those days, they had a class called New Math, and they had a class called New Physics. And I basically aced the class, and the guy that developed that class for the whole United States didn't think anybody was going to get those kinds of scores. And so he recommended me to a physicist in the middle of New Mexico. And they gave me a scholarship so I could go to college. And from that on, I took off.
There you have it. Well, listen, I'm following the journey here. Okay. So you see, you come here with more photos than anything else, and you're figuring it out as you go. As you've said, fast forwarding now, you've helped develop and own multiple businesses and enterprises. Well, now we culminate all of that in this book, Yes, I Can, and So Can You. Raul, connect the dots for me here and how we got to this point. What inspired this book?
Well, what inspired the book was my wife, my kids, my friends. They all said, you got to put this story together. And, I felt pretty obligated to this nation because this nation gave me everything that I have and gave me the freedom that I didn't have in Cuba and allowed me to really experiment with some new companies that didn't exist before. And, but I also believe that you have to pay back. And so everything that I do now is all part of charitable trusts that we have established. For instance, I've started a number of companies, and it was important to me to teach people how to run a company and how to build a company, and not be a company that is just one of 200, unique. And so I wrote a book on that. I wrote a book called We Got Mojo, for example. That's basically putting together 35 of my friends, many of whom people would recognize because they've built great businesses and great companies and great things. And then, I moved on to help people train. And so we built a class on how to build a company. And I've built many companies in my career, companies over $1 billion in size and with a lot of people. And so, I wanted to always help somebody with my actions.
Yeah.
And that's basically the story. And I'm doing that. So at 78 years old, I'm still running a company. I'm chairman of the board of a large company. And I'm also doing charity. That's my payback.
People, Remember, the book is called Yes, I Can, and So Can You by Raul A. Deju. You're going to want to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a whole host of other places and pick up your copies. Raul, as we transition here, sticking with the essence of giving back. As you've mentioned, now you almost feel obligated, I believe you said, right? For what was given to you and how you were assisted along the way. So in that same spirit, my follow-up question now, there are a lot of people that are feeling pressure from a lot of different areas nowadays. Things are, life is tough, right? So I don't know if that's anything new, but there are a lot of people that are going through some tough times at this moment. Well, I want to ask you, how do you hope your book inspires others who face challenges or are, on that road trying to pursue, they're wanting to aspire their own dreams, but of course are running into obstacles along the way. How do you hope your book inspires that?
Well, I have always taken the attitude that, if you plan to do something and you think through it, you have ways to get there. But it may not be the first door you bang on. You may have to correct things. You may have to change things. And that's the approach that I always took. I started in physics. That's not the common thing that most students in college want to do. And I looked into nuclear physics, and I looked into other things. I started in hydrology. Water resources. That excited me. But I was doing the math of it and the theories of how you develop ways to extract water and so on. And, I am by then 19 years old. And I had a professor, famous professor. And professor said, you and I are going to write a book. And so we wrote a book that is still to this day the Bible of hydrology. I don't get things in my brain that say you ought to not try it. You ought to be more cautious. No. I charge ahead and then I get it done. I had a friendly physicist that came to me and said, you need to go to New York to study under a gentleman that was the god of astrophysics, the god of studying interplanetary things. So I did. And I found that was something that really rang a bell for me. How can you do hydrology and space physics? Well, very easy. You just do the best you can, and you have one hell of a lot of fun. Because if you don't, you won't get the job done. So at this day, I have written 8 books in different topics, and have had a fun career. But it hasn't been like work. And I've led some interesting activities. For example, one of the things that I was involved with was the cleanup of Exxon Valdez, one of the most complicated cleanups ever undertaken in America. And one that you had a time that you could involve yourself in, because after a while, every year, it freezes. So how do you get 10,000 people to work on a project and you hire them not over 6 months, but in 3 days? And how do you get it done without accidents? And how do you get it done without creating another mess? Those are the challenges that make my life fun.
Yeah.
And so I get involved. And that's kind of the book.
Raul, I love what you're saying, man. Because listen, this book, of course, is so personal to you and the aspects of your life that you've encountered and journey along the way. But it is so relatable and so beneficial for so many others. Because even what you were just talking about in terms of doing the best you can and having fun along the way. Well, yeah, you were directing that towards one of your particular businesses and endeavors that you were encountering. But people, isn't that just a great message for life in general? No matter
Absolutely.
what it is that you're doing, you do it to the best of your ability, and don't forget to have fun. And that was going to bring up my next and final point as we close out. Because listen, Raul, let's just call a spade, brother. I could talk to you for hours, man. You have enough information to last that long. But we're not going to do that. All right? We got a goal here, and we're going to hit that. Now, as we close out, sticking with, again, the same essence of paying it forward, giving back, I also understand that, listen, when you're on that journey and you hit those bumps in the road, well, sometimes it's hard to have fun in certain moments, right? It's hard to understand the value of something that you're going through if it can be viewed, or I guess deemed, as a quote unquote failure. And Raul, I have my own perception on this. And I remember at a very early age, I was in my teenage years at that time, and I started to view things no longer from a perspective of wins and losses in terms of things I were encountering, but from a perspective of wins and lessons. Because even in those quote unquote losses, even in those darker moments, I realized when I shifted my perception and I viewed everything as a potential learning lesson that can be gained, well, those losses, they just didn't hurt as much. Not to say that I wasn't upset that that happened and, I was falling short of any particular goal or thing at the time. But I realized that there was a lot of wisdom in that experience, and I could utilize that to grow and develop from.
Well, and that's certainly true. And, I would tell you a case where that happened. As I said, I like to help others, and that's kind of my forward-looking things. And, when I was helped by New Mexico Institute of Technology to get my Ph.D., I worked and the people helped me. Well, I get the same thing now for people that are enrolled there. I have a work-study program that people can work. And, the rewarding thing is that one of the persons that enter into the program was a young lady, Native American, Navajo Nation. And she wanted to be a doctor. There are not very many doctors, physicians in the Native American nations. Mm-hmm. And she would have been the first Native American physician. And she will be, because she's still at it, and she's still studying. And we funded her to go to school. And she will get there, I know, a couple more years. And the Navajos can be proud that, hey, yes, she could.
Yeah.
Yes, I could, but yes, she could. And that's the kind of thing that makes my life fun and makes me happy.
Love that.
And it's that simple. And what this book does is it approaches the topic of how can you make the world better, make yourself better, succeed, and have lots of fun in the process. Mm-hmm. And that's my nature. I mean, I think that's basically the story of my life. And, I've written other books, and my wife and my kids said, you got to put your story in there. Mm-hmm. And, I've been days when I was younger when I didn't eat.
Yeah. Because
I didn't have any money. Okay? So I've experienced the bottom and, make it worthwhile.
Raul, and I love that, man, because listen, a lot of people, I think it's easy a lot of times for people to see the tip of the iceberg And they just see the success, but they don't understand everything that's beneath the surface of the water, right? They don't understand the journey. Like you said, there were days where you didn't eat. It wasn't always, rainbows and butterflies. No. And this is why your story is so impactful and is so important for those around us to be hearing and listening to. For everybody out there well, listen, the journey never ends. Until you take your last breath, you're still on your journey. And even you are a living testament to that, as you mentioned, still now leading a large business with thousands of representatives. So people, trust me when I say it's not just a catchy title. Yes, I can, and so can you is a way of life. It is a mentality for you to adopt, and it is a challenge for each and every one of you out there listening in. Because listen, Raul is an amazing individual, but there is nothing about him that's like, listen, he got it, but you can't. Now, he is an amazing individual, but he worked very hard, and he just continued to persist. If you take nothing else from today's interview, take that. And while you're at it, make sure you pick up copies of the book, right? Because this is going to be what continues the conversation and allow this to create conversations with those around you. And let's move some mountains, man. Raul, this has been a true pleasure, an absolute honor, and I really do mean that. Thank you for the wonderful words of wisdom. Thank you for writing this book. And thank you, most importantly, for being a guest here with us to discuss it through People of Distinction.
My pleasure. My pleasure.